Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome, one and all, to the Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. You're here because you're cool. It's late, and I'm your host, Seriously Delirious Dawn. With me, as always, and equally as delirious, Josh, we be jamming Cornelius. I said I was delirious. And we're here to cover Monday Night Raw for November 25th. Let's get into it.
Let's go. All right. Nice. Yeah, Seriously Delirious would be the subtitle. We are covering WWE RAW from November 25th. Hey, look at that. Just a month out from Christmas.
Yay!
Hey, it's been Christmas lately with the wrestling we've been covering. SmackDown
true.
was amazing. Full Gear was amazing. Anybody listening is curious about those, we've got podcast episodes up. Go check them out. But tonight we are at the Monday Night Raw that is just ahead, I believe, of War Games. Or do we have one more?
No. This is it. This is it. We have another SmackDown before War Games, but War Games is 5 days away.
There we go. So it's getting serious now.
Yeah.
And to start things out serious, we begin with our World Heavyweight Champion, the Ring General, Gunther.
Yeah, he comes out to have
rocking
a little
the suit.
Rocking the suit, yeah. To have a little interview in the ring with Jackie Redmond. And whenever they're out to meet you in the ring, some shit's gonna go down.
Whatever do you mean?
You know what I mean. So
I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Continue.
Oh, I was just going to say, Jackie recaps for Gunther the comments and the events that happened and since Crown Jewel, and that, Damien thinks Gunther no longer has that aura of invincibility. And then she goes on to say, so Gunther, what is your response to what Damien has to say? And Gunther, who's out there looking like his confidence is all shattered, takes a long time to answer, but the minute it looks like he's going to, cue Damian Priest music. And Damian Priest makes his way down towards the ring, but he stops about midway on the ramp and says, by all means, don't let me interrupt you. A funny thing to say when you are, in fact, interrupting him. And he goes on to basically say, as he proceeds to get in the ring, go ahead and tell the world what you're going to do to, him at Survivor Series. And he goes on for a bit talking about, you want us to believe that the old Gunther is back, but you and I both know that's not true. You used to have this huge aura, like this killer vibe. You would step into the ring and you would say anything you want to anybody and they wouldn't dare make a move on you. And then he goes on to say, I don't know what happened. Maybe the pressure of being champion got to you, or I guess something about being champion. I guess I know a little bit about that pressure, And he goes on to say, you've had a lot of accomplishments in your life, but I know why you're the way you are right now. Why all of a sudden you can't talk, you can't act right, because in your life you never had to deal with a problem like me. And he goes on to say, at Survivor Series, this problem is taking that championship. And he points at the belt. And he says, "You know what's wild to me? I wonder what happens to Gunter after Survivor Series. I wonder what happens to the ring general when he loses to a guy from the streets. Oh, wait, my bad. This is your time. This is your interview time. By all means, the floor is yours. Talk away." And Gunter steps a little bit closer, looking like he's going to say something, but then he turns away. And Damian Priest sort of adopts that's what I thought kind of a posture. But then Gunter turns around and like just decks him in the head with the microphone.
Yeah.
And
He's
then
like, "Did you hear that? Boom.
yeah, let me talk with my fists.
Did
And
you hear this? Boom."
he heard it loud and clear because it's mic'd.
Echo.
And then Gunter transitions to sort of a ground and pound and hits Priest with a big boot and dumps Priest out of the ring. And then Gunter like drills Priest with a short arm lariat at ringside and then proceeds to clear the announce table. And it looks like he wants to, maybe put Priest through the announce table. But it takes him just long enough. And at this point, there's referees that are starting to come out. That when he turns around, Priest is back up and running. And he proceeds to deck Gunter. And I think he ran him into the turnbuckle post. And then he picks him up and proceeds to just straightforwardly Razor's Edge Gunter through the announce table. And then he stands over Gunter holding the World Heavyweight title up over him and then drops it. Like, this part actually looked like it hurt. He drops the title onto Gunter's midsection and Gunter like jumped because the title weighs like something like 15 pounds and it just got dropped from like 5 feet onto his gut.
Yeah.
And
that looked like it sucked.
And this is twice now that Damian Priest has kind of made Gunter look like a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Which
so he's gonna fucking lose so hard.
Yeah.
Come the actual match.
If we follow the WWE matrix about the person that's up in the final promo before the pay-per-view is usually the guy that's going to lose.
Yeah.
Then at this point, Gunter is going to like mega win. Like he's going to bury Damian Priest if that formula holds true. And part of me kind of hopes that the formula is a little off this time because I kind of don't want Priest to lose to Gunter, but that formula is a formula for a reason. Like it's predictable.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that that's not the case, but I mean, we're talking about WWE here, and they have a tendency to do some very samey things, basically.
Yeah, so I have to admit, I'm curious how they're going to pull it off. Like I think Gunter has to win here, otherwise you are legit. Like at this point. Initially, I was thinking it would be cool if they give Damian Priest a honest-to-goodness dominant run. Because his first title run, as I mentioned before in a previous podcast, had all these asterisks associated with it. Like, there was so much involvement by the Judgment Day. And, he ended up winning it by cashing in Money in the Bank, and there's always kind of a little asterisk on that, right? Like, you didn't beat somebody legit, you cashed in. And so all of that taken together, and the fact that he ended up losing his title in relatively short order once Judgment Day turned on him, made it kind of a piss poor run for Damian.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking that maybe they're setting that up for him. But and maybe they still are. Maybe they still are, and they're just defying the formula because maybe the message is that Gunter losing to Cody really did fracture some of his confidence. Maybe they're running with that.
Yeah, maybe.
Because that's what I think. I think he hasn't looked the same since he lost to Cody Rhodes because it was his first major loss against another very dominant champion, and he wants to be the guy, but then he just lost to the guy. And so where do you go from there? And so I think that's much more the case than, I know why you lost your confidence because you've never fought somebody from the streets. I don't really think that's the issue because the issue started after he lost to Cody, not after he had anything to do with you.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to see. But again, if we follow the formula of who's dominant in the last promo is who's losing at the pay per view, then it's not looking so hot for Damien.
It's not. And again, I'm just hoping that's not the case because I understand that Gunther, they really don't. I know they're not trying to shit can him, and I hope they aren't trying to do that with Damian Priest either because honestly, Damian does deserve a clean run. Uh, so I'm hoping that's what he gets, but honestly, I know what WWE does. There's what WWE is known to do versus what I'm hoping they do. And those two things are wrestling pretty hardcore with each other.
Yeah. And here's another thing that just hit my brain. Remember, seriously delirious. Isn't it also kind of an asterisk again if, Damian Priest won, but he beat currently psychologically damaged Gunter. Like he didn't beat full strength, 100% Gunter. So I don't want that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know where they're going with this, but I guess we'll just have to see War Games.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. I'm not saying I'm not. I know I'm analyzing it quite a bit, and some of it sounds a little negative, but it's really not. Like I'm interested in whatever they're doing here because there's some kind of character arc going on with Gunter, and it could be that Gunter is legitimately in character, like feeling a crisis of confidence, and maybe that's what they're going with it, or this is Gunter like playing 4D chess against Damian Priest.
Yeah, maybe. I'd be okay with that.
I mean, the dude's the ring general, so maybe this is a strategy.
Maybe.
And
maybe
I think it's also a bit of a setup, right? Because Damian Priest is out there all by his lonesome, and Gunter is looking like, oh, my confidence is shattered, and everybody saw me tell, Ludwig Kaiser to go be his own man, so I don't have a minion anymore. And it's like, psych. So at War Games, out comes the minion and helps Gunter win, So it could be that. So there's lots of possibilities here, making it at least a little hard to predict. But if it is the case that Gunter is in fact playing 4D chess and that Ludwig Kaiser is not as all off on his own as we have been led to believe, then there's a clear path for Gunter to beat Damian Priest, which is also in line with Damian Priest being so up in this promo. So maybe that's how it goes.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yep. But moving on from there, we are brought to the back where we see Team Rhea, particularly Bianca Belair, talking with Naomi, telling her that Jade Cargill is going to be down and out for a while, like she's messed up. And, they'll find out who attacked her sooner or later. And when they do, they're going to get them. And Naomi says that they still need to find a fifth member for War Games. And Io Sky pops in and says, what about Kairi Sane? And Bianca's like, nah, dog, that's going to be a no for me. I'm not sure how I feel. Like, you're cool, but I don't know how I feel about more members of Damage Control. And Naomi then goes on to say she would vote for Bayley because Bayley's been right there in the trenches with them, fighting against Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton and all of them. And Bianca goes on to say she still doesn't like Bayley. And then Rhea Ripley steps into the frame. And Rhea Ripley is big and muscular. We know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big, beautiful, muscular Rhea. But it doesn't dawn on you until you see them standing there like that, that she dwarfs all of the other women, like just in sheer height. Like she steps in there and it's like, wow, Bianca suddenly looks like she's a tiny little girl. Yeah. I mean, it's unreal. And Io just turned into like a leprechaun. I mean, she's even standing over Naomi, and Naomi seems like she's a relatively tall girl.
Yeah.
So Rhea Ripley steps and casts her shadow down upon all of her underlings and says she's tired of the bickering. And Bianca asks Rhea if she has any suggestions since she, is calling this team Rhea. And Rhea says as long as they pull their weight and don't get in her way while she's trying to get her hands on Liv, she doesn't give a shit. She said she doesn't care. Sorry,
Yeah.
they're not at TV 14 yet. Um, and then there's kind of a standoff between Rhea and Bianca. Um, but
The stare down. Yeah.
not really because Bianca has to look almost straight up. Um, but then Bianca goes on to say, well, you guys can figure that out because she's going to put the team on her back tonight and win the War Games Advantage match. And after that segment, we are brought to the first match of the night, which is Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee with the LWO in tow versus the Creed brothers with American Made in a tornado tag match. And just so everyone's clear about who's participating here, it's Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee and the Creed brothers. It's not a whole bunch of different members of either of those two factions. And this was probably, I'm trying to think, would I say this was match of the night? Like for pure in-ring work, I might. Because Brutus and Julius are ridiculously good in that ring.
Yeah.
And Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee were bringing it. And there was some crazy in-ring action in this particular match. And I mean, this was a really good match. I don't know how much heat people feel or how much pop they give to either American Made or LWO. Like neither one of them are considered top card, but this was an aces match.
It was a great opener, yeah. And I think, well, first of all, the Creed brothers are just top tier.
Yeah, they're next level good. For where they are on the card, they are ridiculous
and
with their in-ring.
They work so well with well, I know they work very well with Rey Mysterio, but now I could just say that they seem to work very well with LWO in general.
Yeah,
that could just be the case. That could just be the Creed brothers, right? They could just be those next level athletes that get in the ring and make anyone and everyone look good.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, they definitely did so.
Yeah, here's my assessment of the Creed brothers. Ever since NXT, their in-ring work has been on a level higher than their position. These guys' in-ring work is second to none. And they're starting to get some character work by being these insane rednecks that are American made. So they get to show some personality and be a little crazy, and that's good because the Creeds kind of were lacking that element. They were just really good athletes, but that's it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And now they're getting to show some personality and do crazier stuff, and it's good. They're rising to that too. And so I predict a great future for these guys. These dudes are it. The Creed brothers are it. They are very, very, very good. As a matter of fact, I know that they're currently just kind of hanging out with American Made. But if I was to pick a tag team that I think could go against currently the Judgment Days, Finn Balor and JD McDonough, and win those belts off of them, I'd say the Creed brothers have a good shot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I think their limitation is where their characters and their spot is on the card with American Made, not anything about their in-ring work. I think they could run the ropes with Finn Balor and McDonough easily.
Yeah.
So just to pick apart some of the high spots of this, early on in the match, since it's a tornado match, you get some double teams going on. And there was a nice double team with Dragon Lee and Mysterio where they proceeded to do a series of moves to take down Brutus Creed. And then once, I want to say, was it Brutus or Julius? But they basically picked apart the Creeds. And at one point, I want to say they got a hold of Julius. And Mysterio hits. Uh, let's see. I think Lee like pops up Mysterio over the back of his head, and Mysterio hits a seated senton on Julius, and that puts Julius on his back, and then Dragon Lee hangs on to Julius's legs, which allows Mysterio to do a like flawless lion salt or springboard moonsault for a 2 count, and that looked great. And then another really pretty good spot was I want to say Brutus puts Dragon Lee on the top turnbuckle and is like up there with Lee, and he's trying to like club him, and Lee counters with a couple of headbutts, and it looks like Dragon Lee is going to go for the flying double foot stomp, but before Lee can get positioned to do the double foot stomp, and while Brutus is kind of like hanging in the tree of woe waiting to be stomped, Julius runs up the ropes and grabs hold of Dragon Lee and superplexes him. And he does this while his brother is hanging upside down in a tree of woe, and he manages to do it without stepping on Brutus's legs or anything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And let's see. After the superplex, I want to say Julius beans Dragon Lee with a pretty big knee strike for a 2 count. And let's see. A little bit after that, Mysterio sets up to go for the 619 on Julius, but Julius counters with a lariat that literally turns Mysterio inside out. And that sets the Creeds up to be kind of in complete control. Shortly after that, I want to say Mysterio tries to do a dive towards Julius as another high spot, and he's caught in midair. And Julius hits a modified waistlock takedown, which I thought looked like, and I think you agreed, it looked like Julius was going for his finisher, where he does the big double leg mat return into like a sliding lariat or clothesline, but he just did the double leg mat return.
Yeah.
And then after that, I want to say he proceeds to knock Dragon Lee off of the apron, and then Julius climbs up to the top rope. No, I say climbs up. I'm sorry. Let me give this man the justice he's deserving here. He literally jumps to the top rope.
Yeah.
And this
Spider
is a big
monkey.
dude. Like, if you've seen Julius Creed, like this is a move you expect to see from like Io Sky, not from Julius Creed. So he jumps up to the top and then proceeds to hit a beautiful 450 splash. And I'm like, there's nothing Julius Creed can't do. Like, this dude is the total package. If he can get to the top rope and do dive moves like that, and he's also a super powerhouse. I mean, shit. And then I want to say after that, some of the momentum starts heading back towards the LWO, especially once Dragon Lee is able to get tagged like in, and there's a point where Lee sweeps out Brutus's legs and then hits him with that combination of like a kick, and then he jumps over, trips their feet, and then he dives back in with a kick. Mm-hmm. And then he turns and drops Julius Creed with a spinning DDT to get a 2 count. And there's a point a little bit after that where I think Dragon Lee was going to the top, but he's intercepted by Brutus, and they're kind of fighting it out on the top rope, and then Julius joins in, and now it looks like the Creeds are going for like a double superplex, but then Mysterio runs in and hits a 619 on Brutus's legs.
Yeah.
And this forces like both Creeds to sort of fall backwards, and now they're kind of in a weird version of both of them being in the Tree of Woe, and this allows Dragon Lee to hit a double foot stomp on both of them, and it looked like Brutus took a particularly like harsh version of it. Like I don't know if Lee cleared, like, because after the stomp he's supposed to land on the ground, not on top of the wrestlers, and it
Yeah.
looks like he still landed on top of Brutus, and so Brutus is like crawling out of the ring. Uh, he looked like he got seriously screwed up by this. But apparently he wasn't getting out of the ring fast enough, so both Mysterio and Lee do sliding drop kicks and just projectile him out of the ring. And then Mysterio does that quick sliding splash, and man, it looked like Mysterio hit the ground kind of hard because he came up after that splash like, oof, that sucked,
Yeah.
but it looked cool. And then I want to say Lee hits a cannonball senton through the ropes. And then Julius ends up getting a hold of Lee, and let's see, Julius drives Lee. I don't. There's a point where Julius is on the floor with Lee, I want to say, and hits a snap vertical suplex on the floor. And this is after the cannonball senton to Julius, who was outside the ring. And the cannonball senton looked bad enough. It looked like he almost went over Julius. Like for a second there, I thought he was trying to do a what do you call it? A sunset flip. And I was like, that's pretty ambitious. But I think he just overshot the senton, to be perfectly honest. And then Julius snap suplexes him on the floor, and that looked gross.
Yeah.
And then as we're heading towards the near end of this match, Mysterio gets, I want to say, Brutus with a head scissor takeover to the middle rope. But Mysterio then inadvertently shoves Brutus into the referee. And so, like, the referee and Brutus are kind of stuck in the corner for a second. And during that time, Chad Gable jumps up onto the apron, and Mysterio comes over to get in his face, and Chad Gable grabs hold of Mysterio's mask and turns it like 90 degrees on Mysterio's face so that the like eye holes and the mouth parts are on the side of his head. And I'm surprised more people through the years haven't done that to Rey Mysterio. That was genius. And then Julius rolls up Mysterio, who is now like trapped in his mask, for a victory. And so the Creed brothers win after a really hell of a match, with Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
In the damnedest of ways, with Mysterio's mask being used against him. So there you go. The Creed brothers win one. Good match. I mean, really, like, for the in-ring work, this was probably match of the night. Like, these guys really, really put on a hell of a match with Mysterio and Dragon Lee.
Yeah, it was fun. I found it fun. After that, of course, we got a video recap of Paul Heyman returning to SmackDown with CM Punk. And then they let us know that it was over 72 million people who watched it over social media across all the platforms. They recapped that again later on, just so you guys know.
Just in case you missed it. Yeah.
Just in case, yeah. They also let us know that Cody Rhodes is going to be a special guest on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon this Thursday, this Thanksgiving. And after those two things, we cut to backstage, where Finn Balor is eating up all the scenery. And,
all of it.
Yeah, talking with Liv Morgan, and saying that they should have more faith in her teammates. R-Truth appears out of nowhere and agrees with Finn. He apparently said he needed a place to hide from Butch. Finn tells him Truth that if he doesn't leave, basically he needs to leave his clubhouse. Truth said that they ain't even a family no more and Thanksgiving is off.
And then Carlito said,
Yeah, and Carlito, I think he asked something about. He's like, "Wait, did you say Thanksgiving was off or something?" I think. Um.
Yeah.
And Finn was like, um, the time for fun and games. He's done with it. Um. Finn then addresses Liv and says that uh, he knows that Liv needs to get the advantage at War Games because of her competition. She's got a lot of people that she's going against, and thanks to Dominic and thanks to Dominic Mysterio, or Dom and Nick,
Dom and Nick.
yeah, Damian Priest was on the fast track to becoming the world champion or the world heavyweight champion again. Um, but Finn wants to look at all the positives, and despite Dom and Carlito losing to the Raiders last week, they did soften them up, and so it was going to be a great week for the Judgment Day. And he also wanted to let them know that there's no leaders in Judgment Day, but when everybody listens to Finn, they're one big happy family.
That sort of sounds like a leader.
Yeah, that sounds like a breakdown.
When everyone listens to Finn, they're one big happy family.
Oh, wow.
I can't even do that right. Like, Finn's Irish, and I just Scottished him up.
Yeah. So, which led us to the second match of the night. Braun Breaker.
Seriously delirious.
Yeah, seriously. Braun Breaker versus Ludwig Kaiser. You guys know.
And Braun Breaker looked extra pissed off.
He did. He looked extra red. Red and purple.
Shaved off his hair nubs.
Yeah, he shaved off his hair nubs so that he could get faster aerodynamics when he spears people. He was especially purple around the forehead region. He was ready to go. And you would think that Braun Breaker is going to get in the ring and basically destroy Ludwig, but Ludwig was like, hold my body oil, because he's an oily bastard. I mean, that dude. He wants to make sure that every single one of his little 4 abs that sit on the top of his belly, he wants to make sure that every last one of them glistens. My man, they have to glisten. If they ain't glistening, then if they ain't glistening, he's not here for it. So, after that's probably why he came out. Well, it took him a minute because he was like, "One more layer."
Right, he's not done. He needs more polish.
And then he came out and walking all slow like a hairless cat. I don't know if you guys have ever seen School of Rock. There's a guy named Snake, I think, that's in the band, the competing band. That reminds me a lot of Ludwig, just because he's like so like he moves just like him, all slow and weaselly, and it makes you uncomfortable. Yeah, that's Ludwig. So he's walking up to the ring, ready to get his match on. He's ready to either fight or ready to be a Chippendale dancer. Either way,
it could go either way.
Yeah, he's ready to get in the ring and do the damn thing. It starts out, of course, though, with Breaker just yeeting him into like some turnbuckles. I mean, it starts out with Breaker being pretty dominant. But not for long, because Kaiser goes in, he rakes the eyes on Breaker. He's throwing haymakers. Like basically he didn't just take it. I mean, I honestly thought this was going to be a bit of a beatdown or a bit of a squash.
Yeah,
but it was not. Ludwig held his own, and I mean, he did a lot more than hold his own. Actually, he gave Braun Breaker what for? And there was a time, a point in the ring, of course, where they're outside of the ring. They're on the apron, of course. Uh, and our Braun got Ludwig out into the apron, and then he slinks out of the ring on the other side, and he's about to do his wraparound spear that he does. And I mean, guys, when I say my man, like, he increased his speed around the last turn when it was time to, like, when he was trying to barrel into Ludwig.
Oh
he
yeah.
he gave it his all. I mean, there were no breaks. Braun Breaker? No, he did not. Braun full speed. He full speed right into the corner of the announce table, or the announcer's table, because Ludwig moved out of the way at the very last second.
Yeah, and I
And
mean the force with which he hit that announce table right on the corner was insane.
oh
Like both of
man,
us were like, he killed himself. But like Kaiser doesn't have to win this match now. He
right
just
on
has
the
to clean up.
solar plexus, man. Yeah, I mean, whoo. It looked bad, so it went from him running at top speed, him running into the corner of that desk, and then him yamching himself. He was just yamching on the floor. He was in
Hmm.
he was in perfect yamcha position as we cut the commercial. And of course, when we came back, he was in some sort of rack by Ludwig. When we
Yeah.
came back, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense because he did legit I mean, he got it. He handed his ass to himself. He
Yeah.
was he was basically like, you don't want to breathe anymore. Um and from there we had some dominant displays from Kaiser. I think he when we came back from commercial, that's he was doing the abdominal stretch.
Yep.
Um and he got a body slam. Uh he goes after the ribs, and which makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Since he wrecked him on the damn announce table himself.
yeah. So like this whole little segment until Breaker had enough and goes in with like a leaping clothesline. Like Kaiser,
Yeah.
he did a little run. He did a little run on Breaker. I mean, he gave him what for. And this was a really good back and forth. But once Breaker got back in control, because I think uh Kaiser did, like, he was doing some palm strikes, and then he started fucking around with Breaker, toying with him, and of
Yeah.
course that just pissed him off. So then Breaker's hulking out. Uh, and there's like a haymaker exchange. Kaiser reverses out of an Irish whip from Breaker. Breaker does a leaping clothesline. Breaker,
Yeah.
he did a yeah. Did he one or two, or did he ended up doing like a forearm knockdown? Or I don't know why I'm trying to do this,
What
guys,
here,
because this
yeah,
is
yeah, I'll
really
get you. No,
his
you were
forte.
doing great. Hey, no, you were doing great. You were doing really good. Um, in this particular segment, just to recap, kind of in the first part, because I'm just gonna pick some highlight reel stuff. There was a beautiful overhead belly to belly suplex, like early on in the match from Breaker,
Yeah,
and largely in the first portion of this match, Kaiser's offense consisted of trading some haymakers and going for the eyes of Braun Breaker. Like, that's what he had to do. The real winner of the first portion of this match was the announce table that absolutely demolished Braun Breaker. Um, then, as we head into, like you were describing, kind of the second part of this match, uh, Kaiser obviously has the up on Breaker because the announce table like demolished Breaker. So of course he's focusing on the ribs, but then for some reason Kaiser decides he wants to get cocky after he lands a penalty kick. And so
yeah,
Breaker is like kind of like getting to his knees, and Kaiser's like, slapping him, and it's just pissing Breaker off, as you pointed out.
yeah,
And so he kind of gets to the point where he's like, I'm done selling your crap. And so we get into another like haymaker exchange where it's Kaiser is like trying to hit him with several haymakers, and then finally Breaker has had enough, and so he hits Kaiser with a big haymaker, and it like I'm talking big, like the big ones like Hulk Hogan used to do, where he just punches you and you fall straight to your back, and then you stand up and he punches you again and you fall
Yeah.
straight to your back.
Yeah. My
And
favorite.
then it looks like Kaiser tries to reverse out of an Irish whip by Breaker, but Breaker bounces off the ropes literally. Like he bounces from like the minute he hits the ropes, he bounces back into a flying clothesline that covers half the ring. Like this dude's run speed and vertical leap is insane. And the leaping clothesline demolishes Kaiser, of course. And then Breaker, hits him a couple more times with some forearms. Kaiser attempts to do a clothesline and Breaker dodges that only to power slam the life out of Kaiser. And so it's just like you described. Like, the announce table took out Breaker, which gave Kaiser some opportunity at offense. And once that wore off, Breaker was taking over again. He
Yeah.
got his second wind, and it was looking bleak for Kaiser.
Yeah. And I, well, you know what? I'll get into what I was about to say after we finish this particular match, because it doesn't come into play until a particular time.
Yep. And then kind of heading into the tail end of this match, it looks like Kaiser's trying to go for a boot and Breaker blocks it. And then he kind of chops Kaiser, I want to say, into the corner. And there's a point where Breaker just easily lifts Kaiser up into the top. And it looks like Kaiser, knocks Breaker down, but Breaker just comes back running up the ropes and hitting the Super Frankensteiner, and it looked as glorious as it always does. Like he nailed it perfect.
Yeah.
And then it looks like Breaker's going to go for the spear, but when he runs towards Kaiser, Kaiser counters out of the corner with like a jumping running enziguri, and it looked like it just leveled Breaker. Like it was a really good move.
Yeah.
And I want to say Breaker starts to roll out of the ring and kind of drape over the steel ring steps, and that's when Kaiser steps out of the other side of the ring to do the wraparound drop kick. And while he's preparing to start doing that, down from the entrance ramp, Sheamus comes barreling in, like running at top speed, and just hammers Kaiser from behind, which immediately forces a disqualification. Like the ref super saw the giant, very white, milky skinned redhead run in and destroy Kaiser. Like
Yeah,
he did not miss that.
Yeah, he did not go, "What was that?"
What? Yeah. So at that point, Sheamus is just teeing off on Kaiser, like just beating the crap out of him. And he's really mostly going off on Kaiser. And it wasn't for a little bit that Braun Breaker recovered and then walks over. And he doesn't even look like he's particularly like ready to attack Sheamus. He just sort of says, "Hey, this is my match." And, after arguing for a little bit, Sheamus is like, "Whatever," and starts punching Breaker too. And this just results.
Breaker was like, "Hey."
Yeah, this results in an all-out three-way brawl that, they send out the entire referee corps to deal with. And I want to say it cut to commercial, but then it comes back and you see Sheamus and Breaker and Kaiser are kind of way up on the entrance ramp, like by the Titantron. And they're just beating the crap out of each other. And so they finally send out more people to break this up. And after a bit of work at separating everybody, particularly Sheamus, who looks like he's rabid, like he's so pissed, Adam Pearce comes out and says, "You want to fight? You want to fight? You want to fight?" to all three of them. Fine. Then this is going to be a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship at Survivor Series. And that, that's where they end that segment and that match. So your winner was Ludwig Kaiser by disqualification. And we now have a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship at Survivor Series. Boom.
Boom.
And you know what? I'm excited about that match in particular because watching that brawl and like after seeing Kaiser be able to kind of hang in there with Breaker, and knowing the vitriol that exists between like Kaiser and Sheamus and Breaker, this is going to be just this is just going to be the brutalizer match of Survivor Series where they're like it's just going to be total annihilation and destruction. I
Yeah.
kind of I, I have two possible predictions off the top of my head. One that Breaker retains, or that Breaker and Sheamus go ape shit on one another, and somehow that lets Kaiser sneak in and catch a win and become the new Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah.
You know, at least for like 2 seconds before Breaker lifts it off him again.
I think you know what? I'd be okay with that. I think it'd be kind of fun and it would be a surprise. But
Yeah.
I kind of want Sheamus on a. I want a belt on Sheamus too. But that's just me. I'm, you know, I want belts on all my top guys, all my like the guys that I think are like top picks. That's who I want belts. Not saying that Breaker isn't a top pick, but you know he's
Oh,
had it. He's
yeah.
had it. So give it to Sheamus now.
Well, and I think that's why I'm excited about this match, right? Because Ludwig Kaiser's been putting in that work, and so has Sheamus.
Yeah.
And Breaker is really is as good as he's been billed to be. Like this dude is a guy with a bright future for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and so like this is a match where everybody involved is a guy that I could see having the belt. So like I don't have like somebody in this match that I'm like more favorable to than anybody else. Like maybe
Mhm.
Sheamus a little bit because I'm more of a mark for Sheamus, but like Kaiser's deserving, Breaker's deserving,
Mhm.
everybody's deserving is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm. I
And that
hear
makes
you.
it for me that makes it a compelling match.
Yeah. I can dig that.
That and I know they're going to try and kill each other in that ring. It's going to be
Yeah.
glorious.
Mhm.
So, moving on from that, we are taken to a segment where Kathy Kelly is sliding around in the back um, on a wave of happiness as she's interviewing the OG bloodline, which is Jimmy and Jay Uso and Sami Zayn. And I mean, tell me I'm wrong. When we were looking at this, Kathy Kelly was smiling ear to ear and like just looked giddy to
Yeah.
be
She
having
did.
this interview.
Yeah. It was maybe she was fangirling, but she was very, very happy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
She was fanning something. Um,
and I mean basically she because it's late and I'm getting cross cross-eyed. I was trying to follow my own thought here. But honestly, she did. She looked pretty excited. Pretty
yeah.
happy to be talking to him. And of course it was about war games. Um and she asked them if they were how did they feel about CM Punk joining up. And you could I mean feel free to take over cuz I'm trying to remember.
I got you.
Thank you.
No, you were right. Like she asked the question that she asked all of them was how they felt about their new fifth member, CM Punk.
Yeah.
And Sammy goes on to say he was definitely shocked because they were already, if they needed to go to war games with a 5 versus 4. They were ready to die on that hill. And he never expected that their fifth man was going to be CM Punk. And he goes on to say that Punk's a complicated guy, and that everybody who's interacted with Punk has a complicated relationship with him, including the tribal chief, and that Punk, and that's the reason why Punk and Roman are going to have a one-on-one conversation this Friday on SmackDown. And Sammy says he wants to trust CM Punk, and Jimmy says that Sammy can trust him because the wise man does. And now they have the wise man back, and it's time for the Yeet Man to beat Jacob Fatu in their War Games Advantage match on SmackDown. And that's where Jay comes in and says, uh, I can't do justice to how Jay delivered this because it was glorious. But he says, that's right, Jacob. It's going to be a family reunion. But at this particular reunion, he's going to whoop Jacob's ass. And then they're going to war on Saturday. Yeet.
Yeet.
And then they, him and Jimmy take off. Jimmy's just beaming because like he appreciated that energy out of Jay. And Sammy, before he heads off, turns back to Kathy Kelly and does like the yeet hand gesture, but he doesn't say anything. But the crowd picks up on it, and so all of the crowd's like yeet. And it was an altogether good promo. Like it was cool.
It was fun.
Yeah,
That's my phrase tonight. It was fun.
it was though. It
But it
particularly
was,
like
yeah.
when you're dealing with the Yeet man and you're dealing with Jay and Yeet. That everybody likes that. They pop for it. It's good times.
Yeah.
And that led us into the third match, which is the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and JD McDonough versus the War Raiders for the World Tag Team Championship.
Shout out to Wade Barrett for making the War Raiders intro extra freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, like Wade's been working on like his hard rock growl or something because he was all Raw is war. And it was like, dude, my wig is blown back. I wasn't expecting it.
I was like, whoa, too much
And
intensity.
it was pretty fantastic, honestly. Like kudos to Wade Barrett, real talk.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate that because man, back in the day when they were trying to be the new Vicious Viking Raiders and they came out with Valhalla, I swear to God, Michael Cole did the opposite of what Wade did just here, and he buried the shit out of them guys. So it's nice that they're getting support from the announce table instead of getting buried.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think I even said that when we were watching it. I was like, yeah, thanks for not burying them, because if this had been
Michael.
Michael Cole, he would have buried them the second time we saw it. We were like, oh, here we go. So yeah.
So I appreciated that kind of an intro. Like it's really good that instead of undermining their gimmick, Wade was like putting them over. So yeah, well done.
Yeah.
And so we start this match kind of how you think it's going to go. I mean, you look at Finn Balor, you look at JD McDonough, and then you look at the monsters that are the War Raiders. And you pretty much predict that like Finn and JD are going to get their asses handed to them. And so we start out with Eric, who lays the beat down on Finn Balor. And then Eric grabs a hold of McDonough, tosses him in the ring, and, nukes both of them with a double clothesline. And then he tags in Ivar. And Eric throws McDonough out of the ring, and Ivar like starts nuking Balor. And this is pretty much how this match goes. There were a couple of like pretty nasty moves that happen here. I want to say particularly with Ivar, like Ivar is ridiculous. Can we just say that Ivar is insane?
Yeah. Nightmare fuel.
Because like Ivar, like they say it a lot when you have a big guy that's like halfway agile, but like Ivar is like weirdly so. Like he's pretty quick in the ring for a guy his size, and then he's doing cartwheels, and then he does like a spinning leg lariat where he gets his leg higher than Jean-Claude Van Damme and shit. It's crazy. Some of the bigger high spots in this match were, of course, Ivar destroying people. Like Ivar near the mid to second half of this match gets in the ring and he back body drops like McDonough to space. And he's hitting this great sidewalk slam, like it's a layout sidewalk slam where he goes down belly first with the opponent, and it looks extra brutal, almost like it's like a side slam into a power slam. And he followed that up with a cross body splash. So now McDonough is steamrolled flat. He's ready to go into the oven. So I want to say McDonough sidesteps and sends Ivar to the turnbuckles. And then he runs after Ivar, which, I mean, that's almost as bad as running at Sami Zayn when he's in the corner.
Yeah, don't do that.
Ivar just picks his legs up and then proceeds to like sitting senton like on top of McDonough, which is like a very fast version of the Annihilator. So it's like, well, you don't exist anymore because you're just that stain that's in the mat now. And after that, Balor comes in to try to attack Ivar, and Ivar's like, psych, and cartwheels around Balor. I mean, let that just wash over you. That would be akin to seeing like Big Bronson Reed do a backflip, to counter
Yeah.
a clothesline or something. And after he cartwheels, he immediately launches into a huge spinning heel kick that just lays Finn flat. And then Ivar runs and hits a Bronco Buster. I'm trying to. Was it Balor or was it on McDonough? I think this was on McDonough. And then he tags in Eric. And they hit the assisted power slam for a 2 count. And Eric, I want to say, delivers. What was it called? It wasn't Death Row. That's his personal finisher. What did they hit him? It's the. Oh, come on, brain. Is it War Machine? What are that they're calling their finisher where Eric
Oh,
lifts a guy up and then Ivar does like a springboard clothesline to them and like Eric basically suplexes them on top of that. I want to say it's
oh,
War Machine, but I could be wrong.
yeah. I think it's the War Machine.
Yeah, okay, good. And then I want to say Dominique and Carlito run in to interfere. And after hitting the War Machine on McDonough, unfortunately, he's a little too close to the bottom rope, and that allows Dominic Mysterio the opportunity to put McDonough's foot on the
Ugh.
bottom rope so they don't get the count there. But the referee apparently saw it and proceeds to eject Dom and Carlito from the ringside area. And while
Mhm.
all that's going on, I want to say Eric delivers a pounce on the floor and to both of them. So like while they're getting ejected, Eric came out and started like destroying Dom and Carlito, and Ivar goes to the top rope. I'm not sure what sort of death he had in mind for McDonough, but Finn clearly didn't want to find out, and Finn grabs a hold of Ivar and then proceeds to do something akin to a cutter with Ivar, like where he goes seated on the apron and basically, just like chokes Ivar on the top rope, like a guillotine almost. It was crazy,
Mhm.
but that's enough to screw up Ivar badly enough that McDonough is able to roll him up, and they pick up the victory. So after a heck of a lopsided match that only turned tied because of the distraction from the Judgment Day, the World Tag Team Champions remain the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and JD McDonough after a heck of a fight with the War
Yeah.
Raiders, honestly. Like, the War Raiders had that match won if it was not for interference. Like, that much is clear.
Yeah.
So, a really good match. And a win the only way the Judgment Day can get them through, like, the numbers game and cheating.
Yeah, that's about right. Boop boop.
And then we are shown a vignette of how next week on Raw, it will be the New Day's 10-year anniversary show. And the nanosecond they showed us that, we know that the New Day is about to have a heck of a fight and
Yeah.
and not get along. Although it does sort of cut to it shows Kofi and Xavier taking a look at that vignette playing on one of the TVs backstage, and they're, the audio didn't kick in straight away, but when it does, they're basically saying, "Yeah, we got to squash the beef. Can you believe like it's been 10 years?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, New Day rocks." And so it seems like they're solid at this point,
Mm.
right? Like they've squashed the beef and they want to get back to the good old New Day. Uh Man, it's like you're screaming they're going to break up. Um, But at that point, New Day's music starts playing because they're fixing to have a match. But before we get to that, we cut to the back where you see the final testament kind of in their dressing room, and it's Carrion and Scarlet and Akam and Razar, and I think was who's the old dude? I forget his name. The one that got
I know who you're
the
talking
mandible
about.
claw.
Yeah, it's not.
I can't remember if he was there or not, but
He wasn't.
okay. So he wasn't there, but all the rest of the testament is, and Miz comes in and informs Karrion Kross that the Wyatt Six are there. And for some reason, after last week, where the Miz was like playing 4D chess and cutting killer promos, the Miz is acting all cowardly lion again. And then Cross says, "Well, we're gonna go get him," and Miz is like, "All right, I'll stay here with Scarlett," because Cross had told Scarlett to stay in the locker room while they go handle this business. And so when Miz tried to stay, Carrion's like, "Mm-mm," and Miz is like, "Right, I'll come with you." Um, so Scarlett is left there after they all leave, and then it sort of pans around so that you can see in the mirror behind Scarlett that Nikki Cross is there, and Scarlett notices and turns around, and that's when it kind of cuts away. And so you're kind of left wondering, uh-oh, what happened? With that.
But not for long.
Well, a little bit long, because we go then next to the fourth match, which is the New Day versus the Alpha Academy with Maxine Dupree.
Yeah, this wasn't long. I mean, it wasn't. The match started out for some reason with the New Day bickering with each other about who should start the match. Kofi, and Otis are gonna start things off. But as soon as Xavier got out of the ring, he tags himself in. And that mean I'm not really sure what happened. I'm not really sure why they were having an argument about who would start and why they waited to get into the ring. That was I was having a hard time focusing because I was too busy in my head going, wait, you just spent like 10 minutes in the back going, I'm sorry, man, we shouldn't fight, and you guys haven't determined who's starting the match yet? That's some noob shit. So I was kind of,
Noob Day?
Yeah, seriously. So I was kind of in my head with that, but I know that Xavier tags himself in. Kofi gets PIE'd, and Otis does a discus back elbow. And I think he does it
immediately.
I think he does it to Xavier.
Mm-hmm. And this is mean looking. This is a lot like the what is it, the Judas effect from Chris Jericho, but at a higher speed from a guy who weighs like 100 pounds more. This first move looked like that's the end for Xavier.
Yeah, imagine, if you will, you took a quarter and you spun it on its side really fast. That's what Otis looked like. He just came in with that clothesline, and Xavier knew nothing except elbow, and then he saw birds. And I think he even took didn't he get Kofi down too?
Yeah, he ends up, because like he pretty much lays out Xavier, and then Kofi tries to come in to interfere, and I want to say Otis levels him with like a body avalanche.
Yeah,
and so both members of the New Day are down. And then that gives Otis the chance to hit the caterpillar, which he does to Kofi. And Xavier, I think, is in the opposite corner. And it looked good when he hit it on Kofi. Like he jumped up and he's like, "Oh yeah!" and drills Kofi with it. And Kofi kind of rolls out of the ring. And then Otis goes over and he tags Tozawa in. And like Xavier is still pretty much destroyed at this point. So he's just like "Brr," in that corner, and that allows
Okay.
Tozawa to connect with his Senton bomb, which is, for those who don't know, because you might not, because you hardly ever get to see Tozawa do it. The Senton bomb that he does is his finisher. And so Tozawa drills that into Xavier, and then 1, 2, 3, they pick up the win. And almost everybody, including the crowd's like, Nani?
Yeah.
Because we just watched Alpha Academy squash New Day.
Yeah. So that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So and right before this, I had said to Josh, so when is this going to implode? Like, because they need to have that talk. They keep going, man, we need to squash this, we need to squash that. And I keep thinking, but you haven't even started. There's nothing to squash. You keep burying it before it happens. So if you guys are trying to repair this, you ain't gonna get that. That's not gonna happen. You just keep putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound. Uh and then you're wondering why the red keeps showing on your shirt. Like you haven't fixed anything.
Yep.
So they needed to have the conversation that eventually uh took place.
Yep. And I think I said that this implosion, because the 10-year anniversary is next Monday on
Yeah.
Raw. I'm like, it's either today or then, because it's got to happen before the 10-year anniversary. And it turns out today was the day.
Yeah.
It gets ugly as Kofi and Xavier are arguing with each other into the back, like all the way from the ring through Gorilla and into the back. They are arguing until they stop, and then you pretty much get the full blown argument, and it gets ugly.
Yeah.
Like it's none of this like, man, why, we could have done that better. None of that. This is
No.
this is getting heated between the two of them. So like on the as they're arguing the way out of the ring, you hear Woods telling Kofi to just run the damn play, and Woods says that that's Kofi's problem. If Woods is the QB and you don't run the play, you don't listen. And I don't think that's an entirely unfair thing, but that doesn't really matter because it just gets uglier from there.
Yeah.
Woods continues to go on and says that Kofi's been wrestling like garbage lately. And you get a litany of like Kofi proceeding to remind Woods of all the things he's done for him, and yet Woods continues to fumble the ball, like all the opportunities he's gotten for Woods, including recently like his intercontinental shot that he gave to Xavier, and Xavier fumbled the ball. And he goes on to say, there's a reason why Kofi and Big E didn't allow Woods to call the shots, because he's too reckless, takes too many unnecessary risks. And Woods pretty much says, shut up and let me talk now. And it's like, ooh. And Woods goes on to say that Kofi was too scared to take a risk. That's why he didn't get a shot at the WWE title until Woods showed up. He's the reason Kofi became champion at WrestleMania. And Kofi was like, you're the reason I became champ? Man, I was a Hall of Famer before we ever met and joined, before you ever met and joined the group in the first place. And Kofi reminds Woods that he still hasn't won a singles championship. And he goes on to say, the real problem is that you just haven't been good enough to become a champion. And that's not Kofi's fault. And so it's getting ugly now. And Woods goes on to say, so I was good enough to take the beatings on your behalf. And, we set you up with Kofi Mania. And guess what happens? You flush it down the toilet in 6 seconds to Brock Lesnar. And Kofi tells Woods that he'll see him at the reunion. And Kofi then responds with, yeah, I'll see you at the anniversary. Almost like one more little like, oh, I corrected you, kind of a thing shot at the end. And it was ugly. This was oogly. So it is looking like they're about to call their faction the Last Day.
Yeah. The last day. The done day.
Yeah, we had the New Day. This is the Last Day. So it's
hold
looking
the time.
it's
They gotta
looking
stay home.
bad. It's
They
looking
can't
like
stay here.
Yeah, they didn't survive to the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, so I don't know what the hell is gonna happen next Monday, but we will find out.
Yeah, so we shall see. But following that particularly heated exchange between Kofi and Woods, which was brutally ugly, um, we then come back to Karrion Cross and the Miz, and they're making their way back to the dressing room that the Final Testament came out of because I guess they didn't find the Wyatt Six,
Hmm.
and it looks like Miz is about to just walk in, but it's like Karrion says, "Dude, knock," because they left Scarlett in there, you know, and who knows, maybe she was changing clothes or something. So he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh," and so he knocks, and I think he hears something, but not what you would think. And he steps inside and he sees that the room is demolished and Scarlett's on the ground. And he rushes over and he's like, "What happened?" And Scarlett's like freaking out. So it takes a few seconds, well, like several seconds actually, for her to stop swinging on Carrion because she's like not distinguishing friend from foe. And she finally calms down long enough and Carrion's like, "Who did this?" And she says, "Nikki Cross." And
Nikki
I can't
Cross.
I can't do justice to how she said it, but it was kind of like that. And you can see on the mirror behind Carrion while he's hanging on to Scarlet, there's a message that's been written in what looks like lipstick, and it says, "Everyone
Yeah,
has something to lose."
yeah.
And woof, that was so good.
Hmm.
That was so good. Like what Carrion and the Wyatts are doing right now is so awesome.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I am
Like
loving this feud.
I am super here for it. And I mean, there's even a little bit to it on stuff that's going on online. Like Carrion cut like a video promo in response to something that Joe Gacy, I guess, had said on X.
Hmm.
And like Carrion's video promo was like one of the better promos he's done ever, save for the fact that there's like an airplane trying to crash into the building or something,
Yeah.
like for most of it. But it
Yeah.
was a beautiful promo. And so I am absolutely on board, locked in, and here for what the Final Testament are doing with the Wyatt Six. Like absolutely here for it. I am marking out for this. Is great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good, and I've been waiting for them to to give some heat to the Last Testament, especially to Carrion, because early on you and I were saying the same thing. Like he's put in the work now, we can see it. He's established his character. He's here. What are you gonna do with him, WWE? And now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it, and I'm here for it. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm ready for Carrion to finally break out and be the star that like we think he can be, and obviously Triple H agrees.
Yeah.
So and
Just get out of his way,
man,
man. Let him cook.
Final
Let him
Testament and
cook.
the Wyatt Six both being like two creepy, almost supernaturally factions is
I am
really
so
good.
here for it. Yeah, I'm so here for it. This day and age of wrestling needs it. It's time to bring it back. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
After that, we get Joe Tessitore telling us
Who?
Joe Skeletor. Um, Joe Tesseract,
Oh, Mr. Tesseract. Okay.
Joe Tatasatori, um,
Joe Tossasack.
Joey Tess. I don't know. That ring announcer that's opposite of Wade Barrett.
Joe Tesla.
Yeah, Joe Tesla. He tells us about the reveal of WWE's Women's Intercontinental Championship, and they're showing us like apparently there was a reveal ceremony earlier in the night, and I'm like, well, we started watching Raw at the beginning, so when was this? And we expected that this would be occurring like last week, after SmackDown did it, but I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe the belt was still being polished or fixed or designed. I don't know.
Yeah.
But long story short, we get Adam Pearce giving a speech that leads to him revealing a women's intercontinental title. And he goes on to say that the women's intercontinental title tournament will begin next week. And hell yeah. Um,
Hell yeah.
I'm pretty sure we all knew it was coming, but I sure am glad that it's here.
Yeah.
I'm here for the women's U.S. title. I'm here for the Intercontinental title. We've been saying for a long time, and clearly we're not the only ones, that the women need more prizes to go after. And this is excellent.
Yeah.
So I am thrilled, and I look forward to seeing how these Intercontinental and U.S. titles play out for SmackDown and Raw and the women's division. Super good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And after that, we find out that at Survivor Series, uh, La Canigat, oh no, I mean LA Knight, will put his United States Championship on the line against Shinsuke Nakamura. Because
Mm.
apparently, damn any sort of like ranking system or number one contendership, if you attack the champion enough times, you get a title match.
I guess they just wanted something for Shinsuke to do or something. I don't know, or
More
something for
like they
LA
wanted
Knight
something
to
for
do.
LA Knight to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant. Like, I'm not really sure. I long for a competitor that will be a good fit for Heat with LA Knight.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly the only thing that his championship is missing. He's got the attitude, he's got the promos, he's got the chops in the ring, on the mic. He just needs that. He needs that competition, that heat. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, I know Shinsuke's attacked him from behind a couple of times, but I don't feel like enough heat has been built here. This
yeah,
feels very still kind of thrown together to me.
yeah.
Um, I would like to see. I know Shinsuke is not much of a talker, at least not in English, we just got done saying how so many of his promos feel like it's the exact same promo, just
Because they
insert the
are.
guy he's talking to here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's an unfortunate mismatch with someone like LA Knight, because LA Knight can cut mean ass promos on people, and so he needs to go against somebody who's willing to talk back. You know,
Yeah,
like great examples historically would be like The Rock versus Stone Cold. It wouldn't have been as hot as it was if Stone Cold just stood there. Stone Cold can talk, and so can The Rock, and it made for a great feud. This isn't going to be that, I don't think.
no,
And this probably has some of the most minimalistic heat for a match, a championship match going into a pay per view that I've seen in a minute. Um, Hopefully, LA Knight will get a chance on the upcoming SmackDown to like lay the verbal smackdown on Shinsuke Nakamura and maybe build a little more heat for this.
maybe something needs to happen. Because like right now, I heard that and I'm like, okay, but why? Why would Shinsuke get that? I ain't even seen Shinsuke in the ring except to attack somebody from behind. Okay. But I mean,
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? We might get a surprise banger of the night. Maybe Shinsuke's been holding back. Maybe he's like, hey, check my skill. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm hoping so. I'd really like to see more out of Shinsuke Nakamura, especially since they took him off TV for a while. They brought him back, and they've repackaged him. So I'm hoping for the best here. But it doesn't always work out great. Like, I mean, they did the same thing. They took Baron Corbin, they brought him down to NXT. He was rocking it. They repackaged him, brought him back up to the main roster, and 5 minutes ago he was fired. So we shall see. It's not a guarantee, that it's going
Yeah,
to work out for you. In
true.
fact, if they're having to repackage you too many times, eventually they'll realize that nothing they're trying is getting over.
Yeah,
So we shall see for Mr. Nakamura. But fingers crossed, right? I'm hoping.
yeah,
Uh,
me too.
from there, we are taken to Solo Sikoa cutting a video promo.
Hmm.
And it's him sitting at the table that he is ahead of,
May I?
with Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu in the back, all just standing there looking menacing. Jacob, doing the little prayer hands, and having his hair like sticking all over his face. Jacob is a beast. I'm
Yeah.
such a fan of his. And Solo then proceeds to start cutting his promo. And he says, "We're 5 days away from War Games, 5. And man, I have to give credit to the man himself, the former tribal chief, Mr. Roman Reigns. Caught us all off guard on Friday. That was a good one. It was. You got the wise man back, and then you got CM Punk on your side. Roman, you know what? That was a good one." And he's holding up the one, and he says, "This one is dedicated to you. You know it. You deserved it, boys. He had a good one, right? Well, guess what, Roman? That's the only one you're gonna get." And that, I mean, Solo was much more loud and screamy than that, but I mean, he went off here and he says, "You took your best shot. Now it's my turn. This Friday, Jey Uso versus my enforcer Jacob Fatu. The winner gets advantage in War Games. Roman, I don't care if you have 4 people on your side. Hell, you can even have 100, but you won't have the advantage because I'm the tribal chief and I acknowledge my bloodline over yours. See you at War Games." And I got to give Solo props. This promo was legit.
Yeah. I honestly think that's probably the best promo he's cut yet. As the new tribal chief. He sounded good. He looked good. Um the whole video pack I think was real good. It made him look the way that I think WWE has wanted him to be presented all this time. I think he's finally getting into that groove and it's starting to show. Uh and he's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more calm whenever he's in front of camera. Uh so yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see this match at War Games. I have no idea which one of these teams is gonna pull out the victory. But Solo has done a very good job of looking dominant against somebody who has a leader like Roman freaking Reigns. Man, that's hard. So
Yeah.
I applaud that.
And to be perfectly honest, I mean, Tama Tonga and Tonga Lore, okay, whatever. You know, generic henchmen 1
Yeah.
and 2. But Jacob Fatu is insane. And Solo is very, very good himself. And on top of that, you got Big Bronson Reed. That's 3 of your 5 that are like 3 of them are like super heavy hitters. Like those 3 men, Solo, Jacob, and Big Bronson Reed are all guys who could easily carry the world heavyweight title. Like these guys are those guys. Um, and then on the opposite team, you've got Sami Zayn, you've got main event Jey Uso, you've got Jimmy Uso, and you've got CM Punk. And did I leave someone out? Sami Zayn, Jimmy J, Roman. You have Roman,
Yeah.
of course. Roman, and I mean, this is going to be, or it has the potential anyway, to be one hell of a banger of a match. Like,
Yeah.
woof. That is some heavy hands that are in those matches. And I think I mentioned it when we were covering SmackDown, but you also have some options for some surprises, right? Because War Games is kind of a no DQ situation.
Yeah.
And CM Punk has an enemy outside of this in Drew McIntyre that hasn't been seen for a minute, but he might show up. And similarly, Big Bronson Reed has an enemy outside of this in terms of Seth Rollins, who might show up. So this could be crazy. I mean, I'm not sure if they have any plans for Seth or Drew to show up to interfere, but the option is definitely there, and it would totally make sense.
I'm actually hoping that's the case. Like I look, I'm here. I'm here for some drama. But if it boils down to just the new bloodline versus the OG bloodline, then I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah,
Like if they just take out all the little extra pieces and it's just those 8 men, I would be there for it.
yeah.
Or
Like if we're caught off guard and like I don't know, let's say Jacob Fatu gets the win on Jay, maybe, right? Because Jacob's kind of like he's
yeah,
crazy. And so they've got the advantage, and they're like, "Here comes Big Bronson Reed," and then out of from somewhere, anywhere, like maybe out of the rafters with just like his giant mega stomp, comes Seth Rollins, and he removes Big Bronson Reed from the playing field. And everyone's like, well, crap, just like that, the advantage goes to the OG bloodline. And they're like, hell yeah. And then they're all like, look in my eyes, what do you see? And CM Punk starts making his way to the ring only to get claymored like into space. And then so both of the additional members are completely taken out of the match. And like you said, you just end up with the 4-on-4 Civil
Yeah.
War. Then that's still going to be a hell of a freaking match.
Yep.
So I'm here for it. Like there's almost no way that this can't go crazy as a great match. Like these war games, I'm psyched for it. There's so much potential for ass kicking goodness.
Yeah. You ain't wrong. I kind of, I don't know. I don't want to jinx it, man, but I feel like they put together a pretty good card for
war games.
War games, yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely like really excited for it. But speaking of war games, we now come to the fifth and final match of the night, which is Bianca Belair versus Nia Jax.
It's time.
Yep, it's time for the main event. And this is for the women's War Games advantage. So it's Nia versus Bianca to see who gets the advantage going into War Games. And would you like to say some stuff about this match?
I would, yes. I think Bianca and Nia looked really good together. Bianca was in rare form, full of snark, and braid spinny, butt smacking vigor. She was
What?
she was. She came out and she was spinning her little hair. Then she got into the when she started the match. Almost immediately, she ended up doing the thing where she gets in the corner and then she smacks her butt at her opponent.
Oh, that's right. And that
So that's what I'm saying.
infuriated Nia. She was like,
exactly.
how dare you?
Yeah, so honestly, Bianca got in that little corner, she's like, suck it. And Nia was like, oh hell no.
That was exactly how Nia was. Like
yeah,
she was like, whatever, and then she smacked the butt and she was like, oh hell no.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it was pretty. That was the pretty much the opener. Let me try to finish a sentence without whatever the hell I just did there. All right. So let me
make it.
stop having a mouth stroke. Jesus. I had guys. It's late and my things are shutting down. I think half of me is asleep right now. I don't know. But honestly, this was a good match, and the exchange between the two was pretty solid. You would think that Nia Jax, because I mean Nia has a tendency to just basically barrel through her opponents. She pretty much manhandles the people that she gets in the ring with for an extended period of time. There's not much manhandling you can do with Bianca when you are faced with an opponent that could lift you for any given amount of time and yeet your ass across the ring. Then your alpha dog dominance kind of just goes out the window. And so they look to be more on equal footing. I also didn't see a lot of, and maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see any flubs. I didn't see any miscommunication between Naya and Bianca, nor did I see the thing that Bianca is very guilty of doing, which is going ahead of her opponent and then having to stop herself and wait for them to get in place so that she could do her thing. I didn't see that. And that made me happy. Um again, I'm not gonna give you guys the play by play. I'm not, when I try to do that, uh, it bad time. Uh, and I think half my tongue's asleep, so not gonna do that. Um, what else? What else? Was there anything? Was there any particular thing? I can't think of any particular move that really stood out for me. I remember feeling that the match as a whole felt really well put together, and they needed a way to make Bailey a viable pick for War Games.
Yeah.
And so they used this match for that as well. Uh, can I talk about that, or were you gonna?
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. Well, towards the end of the match, um, there was a point where, um, let's see. I remember Jax was getting up on the top rope, and I remember that because whenever someone the size and veracity of Nia Jax get on the top rope, no matter where I am, feel afraid. So I remember feeling extreme fear, which means that Nia Jax is up on the top rope, and then
Mhm.
and then Bailey coming out of nowhere and pushing her off of that rope. Um, and she did so when the referee wasn't looking. Uh, After that, once like once she did that, she started hitting her hand on the side of the mat there to get uh Belair's attention, and basically letting her know, let's go, let's get this done. Um, and Belair does the 450 splash and wins the match. And she's standing there in the ring, and she looks over at well, after she got the victory, like the audience pops. They were really into this match, which made me happy, and they should have been because it was a good match. I mean, there was even a point where Bianca was like she lifted Naya from the top to basically yeet her onto the mat, and that was really cool. But once she does her 450 splash, she looks over at Bailey, and she's at first she's like, Nani? Like, Nani the fuck? But then when she's standing in the middle of the ring, she looks at Bailey again, and she gives her a smile. So I think it's pretty safe to say that that's going to be the person picked for War
Yep.
Games.
The fifth member.
Yeah. Uh, Later when it's going off the air, Belair and Bailey actually hugged it out.
Yep. Bailey, the mysterious fifth element. Boron. No, I mean Bailey. Um, no, just to recap some of the high spots of that, because I mean you pretty much completely covered like how the match flow went. There were some decently nasty spots in this match, like nasty in a good way, like they were vicious moves. I'm particular like first thing that comes to mind was when Nia Jax hit an avalanche diving leg drop on Bianca Belair and folded her up for a 2 count. And when
Yeah.
she hit that, I was like, Jesus, that's how is that much different than like an annihilator? Like, brr, you murdered her. I thought Bianca Belair's little peanut was gonna just come rolling off after that because it's like
You
you
just see it
just
rolling across the ring.
yeah, so that it was that was vicious. Nia Jax tends to have some good routines of like hitting like nasty looking elbow drops and leg drops. I mean, and senton splashes. So she hit a lot of that in this match. It was very good. Um, I also want to say there was a point where Jax was preparing for the Annihilator, but Belair jumps up and like pushes her over the top rope. Um, And then I think she was trying to get back to the top again, and there. No, I see. When she pushed her off the top rope, like she tumbled, but not too badly, like just where she landed on the apron. It was actually a really nice save for Nia Jax. And then it looked like Belair was going to try and do a deadlift superplex or suplex from off the apron into the ring to Nia Jax, and I'm like, no. I mean, I know you're strong, but no. And it didn't happen, of course. But then Nia ends up back on the top rope, and instead of that, Belair like gets a hold of her and like locks out her elbows because there's no other way this could have happened. But she gets her in essentially a military press slam from off the top rope, and that was pretty impressive for Belair to do to Nia Jax. I mean, that was
Yeah.
pretty ferocious. And let's see. There was a point a bit after that Avalanche press slam where Jax regains control and just hits a nasty looking Samoan drop on Belair, and it's like, oh, well, this kind of looks like she's going to set her up for the Annihilator again. But Belair ends up getting a hold of Jax and runs her face first into the steel ring post. And it's steel at this point. No, sorry, it's after this. And then Belair gets her up on the top rope and hits an avalanche like back suplex or Saito suplex. And when they did this, like the turnbuckle, the top turnbuckle pad gets ripped off, and Belair goes in for a cover. It's denied, and then she tries to get Jax kind of up in that corner to do the KOD because she needed some kind of leverage advantage, but she's unable to get the lift, and Jax ends up like breaking out of it and throwing her into that the exposed steel turnbuckle now because the top turnbuckle pad has been ripped off. And I want to say she then tosses her to the opposite corner where she hits an avalanche and a Beal throw. And from there, I want to say that Belair ends up outside the ring. And so Jax follows her out, clears the announce table, and delivers another Samoan drop onto the announce table. And I feel so bad when the table doesn't cooperate. The table didn't break. So Bianca Belair just went squish.
And she kind of
then,
slid down the side.
yeah, like she just sort of melted off of the side after that. She was like, Brrr. And so then Jax comes back out and throws Bianca Belair into the steel ring steps, and it looks like she's trying to just go for the ring out. Like she climbs back in and just lets the ref start counting. And it's at this point that Bayley shows up and attacks Jax behind the referee's back. And that allows Bianca Belair to slide back into the ring at this point. And she runs over and climbs up to the turnbuckle, the same one that's got the exposed steel, and hits a 450 splash on Nia Jax, as you pointed out, to pick up the victory. Yeah. And so this was actually a pretty solid match. And like you said, I didn't notice any botches. I mean, I don't count the announce table not breaking as anything that the two wrestlers had anything to do with. That's just not cooperating. Everything looked good. Yeah. And so the rest you guys know, because Dawn told you, after the match, Belair and Bayley kind of, smile at each other and hug it out as the show goes off the air. And that leaves us with Bianca Belair winning the advantage going into the women's war games and potentially having found their fifth member in Bayley, which the soup thickens.
Yeah.
Our potential members, our potential culprits for who attacked Jade Cargill now looks to be either Bailey, because she's filling in that spot, right? She benefited, or, and it hasn't been announced yet, but I've heard through the rumor grapevine that the individual who's going to fill in Jade Cargill's spot for the Women's United States title tournament is going to be Lash Legend, because Lash and Jakara have quietly been called up to the main roster.
Yeah.
So, do you suppose it was Bailey, or do you suppose maybe Lash who trashed Jade?
To be perfectly honest, I don't think it was that. I don't think WWE is that deep with it. I think it'll probably end up being somebody like Tiffany or because they don't have to show us or like prove it right now. It could be the Poison Pixie. She could have just like basically did a running spear or something to her or something, or maybe there'll be some video footage that somebody found because they remembered that
Yeah.
they had a camera.
Yeah, I think
They're
it'll
like,
be
oh yeah,
video footage.
we have a camera here, guys.
Yeah, I think it'll be video
Um,
footage that surfaces, and I don't know. For my money, I'm
but
inclined to think Lash did it.
yeah, I mean, I could go with that. I just don't know. I just don't know if WWE is willing to be that deep, or if they're gonna be just about as basic as I would assume, and have somebody like Naya. Like the only person they've asked about it was Naya, and then Naya goes no, blah blah blah, and then it ends up being Naya. You know, like that. I wouldn't be surprised. Surprised about.
Well,
And it would be really dumb, I think, if it was Bailey.
I
Um,
I don't disagree with you. I'm just looking at the like Kibono, like who
yeah.
benefits, right? And Bailey got a spot in the women's war games and gets to make up with Bianca Belair, at least until Bianca finds out that it was her that did it. And so there's a couple of different ways this could go, right? Like you could end up with a huge rivalry where like Bianca, ends up being really pissed off at Bailey like forever. And similarly, now Jade wants to kill Bailey too. um,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure what road that leads down. I think more obvious roads would be like you said, like someone like Nia Jax, who, they're already at odds with the other teams. So it's not like, ooh, oh no, Bianca's mad at me. Oh well. But now you're going to have a returning Jade Cargill who's out for blood. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, who do you want Jade Cargill to go hardcore after? And since Royal Rumble, when Jade debuted, Nia Jax has been a potential, opponent for her that we've wanted to see. But not for nothing, you got Lash Legend potentially stepping into that spot, and Lash Legend versus Jade Cargill will be equally amazing. Because
Yeah.
like we've already seen tension between them, because like Lash Legend is huge and super strong, and so it's a great pairing against Jade Cargill. So there's a fair number of cool options that could spawn off of this.
Yeah.
Any which way it goes, I think we can say that we're excited for War Games. And right here, Monday Night Raw. What would your review of Monday Night Raw be?
I'd give it like an 8 or 8.5. Nick Nubs. It was good. Definitely top tier. Told good stories, and I got to see Gunther go through a table. Good.
All right, and what did you say that was 8.5 neck nubs?
8 to 8.5. 8, 8.5 Nick Nubs. Yeah.
I can dig it. I think I would probably give it somewhere in that same range, 8 to 8.5, because there was some good in ring action as well as excellent storytelling, and it absolutely did the job of hyping us up for not just War Games coming, but like I'm curious, like is New Day gonna survive to their 10-year anniversary? Um. So yeah, I'd probably I would say if there was like some more wrestling that was like exceptional, and Transcendent here, they'd push it even higher, but I would probably give it an 8.5. This was very good, and it did a really good job as a go home show of Raw heading into the pay per view.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's some excellent storytelling going on here. So yeah, I'll agree. Top tier, 8.5 Nick Nubs. And that has been our review of WWE Raw for November 25th. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who joined us for this episode. And I hope everyone joins us for our next episode, which I believe will be AEW Dynamite this coming Wednesday. So hopefully you'll be there. And until then, I don't think there's much more for me to do but roll the outro.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.